It is 7:02 p.m. on September 5th, 2023. We'll call to order this regular meeting of the Reading Board of Education for the month of September. All members of the board being present, including Chirag Sadana, remotely via Zoom. The first item of business on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is two items with respect to minutes. The first is I would look for any questions, comments, or concerns about the August 1st, 2023 minutes. If there are no comments on the August 23rd, 2023 minutes, we'll deem them approved by unanimous consent and move on to the June 27th, 2023 meeting minutes, which, if you recall, were the meeting minutes that were kind of incomplete because there was issues with the recording and both of our secretaries were remote and unable to hear the recording entirely. I have gone through my notes and the meeting recording that was audible and pieced together minutes that are substantially revised from previous. And I distributed to the board revised June 27, 2023 minutes that changed substantially the public comment portion and from pretty much the John Reed courtyard all the way down to the end, including clarifying the motions that were heard on the tape, etc. Are there any further comments on this or questions on this? And if not, a motion to adopt the minutes wholesale as revised would be appreciated. Thank you, Mike. Second. Laura, any discussion on this? If there's not, we will immediately call the question. Chirag, how do you vote on the adoption of the revised minutes?
Yes.
Carried unanimously 7-0. Thank you. Brings us on to item 3 of the agenda, which is public comment. And members of the public wishing to be heard. Seeing none, we'll move on to board member comment. Any members of the board wishing to comment tonight? I would just say that I appreciated Dr. McKinnon's invitation to the board to the convocation last week. It was a great opportunity to see all the staff, the faculty together, and listen to your vision for the year. And also want to take a moment to congratulate ER9's first Spirit of ER9 award winner. Is that the name of the award? It is. That was presented to Vicki Cram, who also announced her retirement at the end of the year. So it was well deserved, and she received multiple standing ovations from everybody involved, which was well deserved. If there's no further report or comment, we'll move on to administrative reports. Dr. McKinnon.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for the 2023-2024 school year. We do have an agenda item for school opening, so I'm going to save that agenda item for a little bit later. And just before we get started, we have some old business. We just want to make sure everyone can see this. We were, both Reading Elementary School and John Reed Middle School were named School of Excellence to the Connecticut PTA. So congratulations to both school PTAs and both schools, all the administration and teachers. This is a wonderful award. Special thanks to our PTAs as well. So normally what we do is we start with reports from our building administrators. And I think we'll start again in that way this year with Melissa giving a brief update as to how the school year has been going so far and any opening remarks concerning Reading Elementary School.
Sure.
Podium, the only furniture that's carried over from us.
Yeah, so like repurposed or new. So I would be remiss without thanking our head custodian, Charles Kelleher, and the leadership of Mike D'Agostino, who has been tremendous, instrumental to make sure that our first day was ready to open, especially with all our building projects that were happening at RAS this summer. So much work went into opening school, and typically that happens. There's always so much happening in the summer to get school ready for the first day, but transforming 2 wings in one building was just phenomenal, and it looks amazing. And so it's very, very exciting. So thank you, Mike, and our custodial crew. We welcomed Catherine Mass, Director of Special Education, who's from the Tri-District, but new to RES, Kelly Dunwall, 4th grade teacher, Samantha Lestaco, kindergarten teacher, Carrie June, kindergarten teacher, Felicity Malvaso, a kindergarten paraeducator, Catherine Diaz, kindergarten paraeducator, Laura Darash, cafeteria aide, Jenna Pachkach, recess aide, Alyssa Scanlon, who will be one of our student teachers in 3rd grade, and Mary Burrett, coming back out of retirement to support us in the main office with the leave of Como earlier this summer. So we welcome her back. She's been a great addition and a tremendous support. So we kicked off our school year really with our meet and greet that was held on August 30th. It's an opportunity for students to come into the building, check out their classrooms, see who's in their class, meet their teachers. We had a really successful start to the school year. I will share an anecdote that I was having lunch with a student today, just asking how everything was going. And he looked up and said, I really, really loved my teacher. And so that just makes it, you're like, okay, this is great. It's going to be a great year. And talking about the building projects, please come by and visit. All of our murals outside are beautiful. We have beautiful season murals now outside of the kindergarten wing from one of our amazing parents, Kristen Tarana. She's also doing a new project for us when you first walk into the building, welcoming families and students. That's in the process. It's in progress. It's not done yet. She just started it. And then we had some really amazing RES staff create 6 new picnic benches for us and tables that now are throughout RES, the RES grounds. And then the kindergarten in the West Wing has been tremendous. The West Wing has been completely fitted with all new cubbies and storage, furniture still to come. And then our kindergarten wing has walls and doors, which we never had before. So it's just a really great space for learning. So just really excited to be back. Any questions?
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
Jennifer?
See, you're enjoying the new furniture. We're enjoying it as well. This year, we welcomed 357 students and the following new folks to our staff. Mr. Christopher Harrison will be teaching 8th grade science. Mrs. Christine Wyatt is teaching special education, grades 5th grade and 8th grade. Mrs. Yan Huang is our math paraprofessional. We have Mrs. Nur Carvajal Carr teaching 7th and 8th grade Spanish. Mrs. Chantel Healy is our language pathologist. And Ms. Despina Savalides is a BCBA for us. So we're very happy to have everyone together. We had a nice transition from the 4th grade into 5th grade. Our 5th graders seemed very happy in the building. Our counselors held an open house a week prior to school and helped students navigate the building on their own prior to that first day. We're really excited to see the progress in our courtyard. So thank you, Mr. Hoffman and his crew. You take a look out there. We thank the board for its support. If you look out in the recess area, there's new lines for games, Foursquare, basketball, all that good stuff. We're looking forward to our open house evenings. We have one scheduled for the 5th grade on September 7th. That's 5th grade parents and guardians. And then the second for grades 6 through 8 will be on September 14th. And there seems to be a little confusion because in one of the downloads of a calendar, a parent questioned, are students in school that day because of something that happened in that download? And I just want to confirm, that's a full day of school for students. I want to take time to publicly thank our full custodial staff and our front office staff for getting us ready for the start of the year. We have an 8th grader, Matt Anstead, who was recognized last week by the Connecticut Science Center for his invention convention submission, the 5th stalker, and his work is going to be on display for the month of October at the Connecticut Science Center. And just so you're in the know, this year we're reinstating our advisory program at John Reed. And there'll be 10 students to 1 adult. Advisory will meet for 15 minutes on Wednesdays and Thursdays, pretty much every week. And this will be a time where we can address school climate issues. Students have a way of communicating concerns to a trusted adult in the building. And we're really looking forward to that. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Question about the advisory piece. Is WIN carrying over the same way it has been before? And so advisory is taking 10 minutes out of the day for those
Correct.
2 days? Okay.
Yeah, so it's pulled from the win time on those 2 days.
Okay, so we're not changing the bell schedule on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We're just
No,
truncating WIN for advisory.
correct.
I did want to thank you, Jen, and point out to folks on the board who didn't notice, in the board report, there are clickable links, including to the PD schedule leading into the year and all staff meetings agendas for the whole year. And I thought that was incredibly valuable insight into what's going on from a professional development perspective as well.
So now a little that thank you goes to Kyla Dunn.
Any other questions? All right, we're gonna save our special ed director, who is brand new for last, okay, but that's a good thing.
She's got 90 minutes, right?
That's right. Dr. Pearson, do you have a?
So you move on to someone who's not so new. I do, and you should have received my report. It was a very busy summer in the world of curriculum and also just major initiatives that are occurring. So I'm not going to go over everything in my report, but I do want to point out a few things. The first, I shared with all of you in June that this year we are piloting an evaluation system in all 5 buildings, and we will share a full presentation on the contents of that. But a lot of work was spent this summer getting us ready to go, helping to facilitate training for all of our evaluators in all 5 buildings, and that work will continue into the fall, including presentations to each one of the staff in 5 schools, as well as to the boards. So more information to follow on that. You also know that we are implementing a reading pilot this fall. The pilot is being implemented in grades K through 5. The state legislation only requires us to consider something K through 3, but I was concerned that there would be too many transitions for our students if we looked at one approach, K3, a different approach potentially 4, 5, and then a different approach, 6, 8. So that work occurred this summer to ready our teachers so that they in turn would be prepared to start the year. We had a lot of teachers participate in some June work to review the initial first few units and to work with their colleagues across district, Easton and Reading, so that they felt prepared. And that in turn really helped to reduce, I think, the anxiety and just the feeling that this is something brand new, this is a big change, because the teachers, of course, were able to work with their colleagues who were not present for the curriculum work sessions in June. And they had a half-day training on their first day back to school last Monday. And the first 2 to 3 units will be new in the knowledge domain. The knowledge domain includes an integration of science and social studies concepts. So that's really helpful. It does not take the place of science or social studies instruction, but it helps to provide the students context for their reading. It also makes the way that we teach academic vocabulary more systemic. It's tied to concepts and it's assured through the grades. The skills portion of the pilot program, which is K through 2, and those are the foundational key reading skills, that will continue through the entire year. And we made that decision because we did not want, especially our very youngest readers, to have to make a transition between the visual sound association that their teachers in kindergarten and first grade teach them, A, apple. So if you're using one visual with one program and then we switch the program and all of a sudden we're asking them to make a new association, that really wouldn't be right for children. So we will stick with the skills all year long. We were able to fund a good part of this pilot through Connecticut Right to Read grant money. And then some of it comes from things that we are not ordering within the operating budget. So that's the Right to Read work. And I also wanted to just I'm sure no one's forgotten, but in 6 through 8, we have a new math program. And from what I hear, it got off to a great start. We'll be providing a lot of professional development activities for our middle school math teachers as well to help them in the implementation. We also have a K through 8 math coordinator who just started on the job a couple weeks ago, and she's digging right in. We were in a 2.5-hour meeting this morning, getting to know the teachers, getting to know the programs, the needs, and she will be a tremendous help to us. We worked together also to submit a competitive grant to the state of Connecticut last week. We don't know whether we will receive the monies, but the state has provided all districts the opportunity to apply for monies to support grades 6 through 9 mathematics through what they're calling high dosage tutoring. So we'll see if we get that money. I'll keep you updated on that. And then finally, our work continues in the area of SRBI, but there's a new acronym. So I want you all to know the new acronym because you know we like to change those up in education. We are going with what's known nationally now as MTSS, which is multi-tiered system of supports.
Because that's better.
Because for some reason that rolls off the tongue more than SRBI, scientifically research-based intervention. There'll be a new visual that goes with that will be on our websites once the websites are more fully launched. And we will certainly bring you back more information. We're continuing our study group work, which is a K through 12 study with the assistance of a consultant, and we are in year 2 of that. Happy to take any questions.
2 questions on the reading pilot. The first is, it's every student K through 5 who's enrolled in the pilot,
It
right?
is every student.
And do you see us in Reading at a slight disadvantage against Easton rolling out a K-5 pilot where we have one of the grade levels in a different building?
I don't think so, because all of the teachers are on board. And so the only difference would be that our literacy specialist in this building is not also working with other elementary grades. However, that specialist attends the monthly meetings with his other elementary colleagues. And
Yeah, we're just sort of on an island here compared
Yes.
to the way it sits in Easton.
And
And I
our-
just worry about the trickle down effects on, we talk about test scores and the 4-5 transition being awkward and the 5-6 transition being its own transition. And I'm concerned about sort of a multi-step disconnect.
yeah, I appreciate that. And I will say that the 5th grade in this building is an island in a lot of ways, and we try and build the bridges. Let me give that some more focus and think about how we can be sure to really connect the 5th grade teachers to their colleagues and also the specialists together. Good question.
Okay, Sarah, tell us how we did with end of year
Well,
finances and where we are doing.
okay. Well, as you all know, this has been a little bit of a unique budgetary end of year with our expenditures and projects that we discussed. They were planned, but they were not approved until the end of June. And so that was very close to the end of our fiscal year. So that made it a little bit challenging for us to kind of land the plane in terms of having the work done and also vetting all of the purchases and work that was done, and then receiving the invoices, and then paying the invoices. And so as a result of that, there are some things that, we want to make sure that when we, as an example, get the furniture, that all of the furniture is in really good working condition and it doesn't have anything missing. And so we're still waiting on some of those final invoices, the furniture invoices, one of those examples. And then we also have some open invoices because we are waiting for some things that were custom. So the shade sail, am I calling it the right thing?
Shade sails, yeah, pergola,
The pergola,
the turf.
yes. So those remain open. And so that becomes a little bit of a challenge for us because there was some lead time and coordinating with vendors and things of that nature. But I am happy to say that, all of those spaces are open for students to participate in. So we also had some transition with our new special ed coordinator. And so we had some of those invoices that were in flux that we needed to take a look at and that we're still evaluating. So here's where we are now. I anticipated when I first came to you that our projection end of year, given what we were going to purchase, and then also given, where we stood, that we would end up with about 54,000. And that number has increased as we close out projects and invoices, and so now we are looking at about 270,000. Again, I'm landing, again, I don't have final numbers, but that's where we are, and that's where we stand at the moment.
So I recall that 54,000 is net of $250,000 into health claims.
So yes, so the 270 just is in addition to the 250 going into health.
Because the initial 54 assumed a $250,000
Yes.
contribution,
Yes,
leaving 54, which is now 270.
exactly.
Is this,
Oh, yeah.
is this the money that,
Does this help, Sarah, with what we're referring to?
That's great, thank you.
so is this the number where we're gonna take 50, give it back to the town and then
Sounds like already.
put the rest into the reserve?
Right, I think that's the 270 from which the first 50 goes to the town based on the direction from June, and the balance is swept into health insurance, if that number's there.
Okay.
But there's still a little bit of fluidity there, it sounds like.
There is, and this number is in addition to the 250, so this, so it really is, the 270 plus an additional 250. That would go into healthcare, and so this then with 250 would be the starting balance of the health benefits account. So here is, we met to talk about providing you with a different kind of format for the health benefits account. So here is a slightly different format for this year. And again, we can revisit it. You can give me some feedback and you can decide what you'd like it to look like. Thinking I better, so. Sure. So in June, our bank balance, and this did not include the 250,000 because we haven't ended, so I haven't done the transfer yet, was 486, 596 and 34 cents. So our July claims, you can see here, our July claims, our fees, our premium contributions, interest, and then that's our bank balance at the end of July. So at the end of July, we're looking at 261, 517.78, which is the typical.
Sorry, just so there's clarity, the reason there's no employee contributions is because we're talking about July.
Because we're talking about July, yes,
And
so
so there's nothing to deduct from in July.
that's correct.
And then if we look back at July 1st of 2023, I'm sorry, July 1st of 2022, a year ago, what was the balance then? It was higher than 46, if we include the transfer that.
So if we include the transfer so last year, it was a negative 200,000 approximately, $200,528. And so last year, the additional board contribution was 800,000, leaving the starting balance of 600,528.
And then so if the starting.
And that was
40
actually for June, so that was in June.
So if the starting balance is 46 into this year, it tells us that we ran the claims program last year and we ran about $120,000.
About 120,000, yes. So if you have some suggestions for how you might like this report to look differently, I'm very open to that now, or you can send Chris an email, and happy to revise that.
I think what I'm curious about is what the annual claims budget is divided by 12, to just
Okay.
sort of see, is 217 above or below what we would expect? This seems to be below, because I'm gonna guess that we
Yes, it
budgeted
is.
something like 275 or 300 a month. And so this would put us that much to the good through 1 month.
Yes,
Is this in lieu of the full page that we normally receive?
yes. So the full page, the feedback was that was a little bit confusing. So this is what we do more internally. Then we take that and turn it into the report that the feedback was less clear. But I'm happy to add some additional information on here. I'll take our budget and divide it by 12. I'll add that to the bottom.
And if you could think of anything else that would be helpful for decision making, let me know.
Okay.
I thought maybe it'd be helpful to see maybe a few, sort of an at a glance of the prior year.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, the historical
yeah.
helps, especially the longer some of us have been doing this. It kind of triggers memory about what works, what didn't work for the best. Because I think in isolation, this tells a different story than the reality is.
So that's the end of my report at this time for last year. So then we'll talk about this year. So this,
Before you go
or what,
this year.
what other questions do you have about last year?
On last year, we still need to work through a transfer report once we close out the whole year. So we're probably looking at October for that at this point. Yeah.
Yes. There are just a lot, there's just too many things that are outstanding. Does anybody else have any questions about the prior year?
So how are we doing this year?
So for this year, we are on track as expected. We don't encumber all the salaries until after the first payroll. And so those are not encumbered yet. So I did not give you a report because it's not very, I don't feel like it's very helpful quite yet, but it should be more helpful for in October to take a look at that. And then as we go through, right now it's the beginning of the year, so there's not really anything that's standing out as out of the ordinary or beyond the scope of what the budget planning that we all did last year. It's all right in that.
I understand some of these grants are reimbursable instead of payable upfront. Now, has that worked out okay with the town as far as funding is concerned?
So the way that we've been able to do that is that we are looking to have the reimbursement happen from the state, even though, because of the way that we're funded, we're trying that with them as part of the pilot. And so it doesn't necessarily hit the town budget. So for those of you who may not know, the state of Connecticut changed the way that we receive money for grants. So it used to be that if a grant was $10,000, we could say to the state, please give us the $10,000, and they would give us the $10,000, and then we could expend against that. We would have that money in our account. Now the state has said, we will not give you the $10,000. We'd like you to spend the $10,000 and show us the invoices, and then we will reimburse you the $10,000.
So you're eligible for $10,000, but you have to spend it, show that you spend it, then get
It
reimbursed.
reverses the cash.
Yes, yes. So we've been trying to work out the best way to do that as a cash flow process.
Because the town likes to fund us on a just-in-time basis, and they're not accustomed to releasing that money for investments that early.
Correct. So we're trying to do it through this, we're trying to see if we can't do it directly. So spend the money and then have the invoices and then pay directly, 2 weeks later. But we're going to see whether or not that works out with our cash flow with our vendors. So we'll see. Did that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Does anybody have any questions about that? It is a little bit confusing, I would say.
Okay. If everyone is good, then finally, we're pleased to introduce Ms. Catherine Matz, who is our new K-12 Special Education Director.
Pre-K.
Pre-K to 12 Special Education Director. Just to refresh everyone's memories, we had a K to 8 Special Ed Director, a Pre-K to 8 Special Ed Director shared between Easton and Reading. At our last tri-board meeting, we presented a strategic plan and a new model, which was to have a Pre-K to 12 Special Education Director and a supervisor, which is almost like an assistant principal in each district. And so that's the model that we've gone with. Catherine joined our team mid-July, formerly from New Fairfield, where she was the Director of Special Education in New Fairfield. I knew Catherine as when I was the Assistant Superintendent in New Fairfield, and at the time you were the supervisor. And then you joined as later the Director of Special Education. So why don't you tell us what you've been doing over the past couple of weeks?
Sure.
So thank you, everybody. I can't thank everyone enough for how collaborative and helpful everyone has been. And coming in new to a new position, I just can't emphasize enough how hard everybody has worked to reach out and make sure I'm comfortable and help me understand the 3 budgets and the 3 ones of these and the 3 of those, because we have 3 about raising. So for the past few weeks while I've been here, I'm really prioritizing supporting the opening of schools, making sure all our students with disabilities are getting everything that they need, partnering with all of the principals and all of the staff to do so. Right now, there is a vacancy for the supervisor of special education in Easton. So a lot of my attention right now is to support Easton and make sure that they get everything that they need. However, we have Jen Hinckley here who's doing a great job supporting Reading. And then, you know, I'm here as well to support all 3 districts. That's kind of how it's going right now.
One of our most immediate goals is to work on a special education strategic plan. And if you recall, last year, we worked really hard with the community and stakeholders to come up with a strategic plan for our district. And a component of that strategic plan was special education. So we started some focus groups, which were essentially conversations with our staff and families last spring. And we have a draft special education strategic plan, which at the moment looks like a Google Sheet. And we have key areas, priorities, and actions. We talked a little bit about this at the tri-board meeting. And our goal is for Catherine and I to work on these areas and to turn them into kind of something that our community can see. So this was our strategic plan for our district, and you can see that our priorities are in this format. So we plan on doing the same thing for our special education strategic plan. And then we would like to share that with our stakeholders and get feedback. So what do you think of this plan? What would you like to add? What do you think is missing? And so on. So that's going to be our work over the next few weeks, and we'll hope to present this to you in the fall by the latest. And at the moment, we've been focused on kind of getting Catherine comfortable with our 3 district model and opening school. So that's really our next step.
Questions?
I just have a comment. Well, we just talked about kind of updating our reports. I would love to see something a little bit different.
Sure.
The special ed report. The schools kind of share celebrations with us and that sort of thing. I know it's a little bit different with special ed, but I don't know if there's some things to celebrate, stuff like that. I think would be nice rather than just categorizing.
Something qualitative as opposed to just quantitative.
Yeah. I think
Sure.
it'd be really nice.
Even progress around our 4 major focus areas in special education related to our
Yeah.
plan and how we're doing and so on.
Yeah, whatever you think is appropriate, but no rush. I'm sure you're fit with better
A
things.
little bit, a little bit.
And Kat,
That's
I would-
great, that's great feedback. As you know, I won't be able to share any specific student information, right, because it's protected, but I think that's a great idea to find ways to celebrate.
Yeah, I was just gonna share what we've shared with prior special ed directors we've had here, which is we all recognize that special ed is really resource intensive. It's 35 cents on the dollar, or whatever is spent on the budget at this point. But I think it's important that we hear from you all when you see resource needs coming down the pike, and the earlier we understand where there might be problems, the better equipped we're gonna be to help you solve them.
Of course.
And so don't hesitate to say, we have a big funding problem coming, because it's better that we know it now than we know it when it's too late.
I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone. Welcome.
well, thank you. And that's all.
That's all? Good. That brings us on to board committee reports. Any board committees to report? Being none, on to discussion and possible action, school opening. Dr. McKinnon,
Okay, so,
do you want to share that on the YouTube?
yeah, that's a great idea. So we had a terrific start to the school year. We're on day 4, I believe. I know it's a little warm out there at the moment. And I just sent out a message a little while ago to our families and staff saying that we intend to keep our schedule normal for the next few days. there are a few school districts around us that are dismissing early. But we are really fortunate that we have school buildings that are air conditioned and climate controlled. And I think that is some really good work that's happened in the past 10 years in that area. So we're pleased that things are going well. So I want to touch on a few things. How are things going in our schools? We've asked for stakeholder feedback on this topic. Just want to remind everyone, if you want to see some pictures about on how school is going, you can follow my Instagram account at ER9 District. We have 1,942 followers.
What are you going to do at 2,000?
Bring a koala. Something fun. There's 378 posts, and it really does show kind of a snapshot into each building, each grade level, each activity, and we have so many great things happening in our schools. So these are just a couple of photos from Instagram. If you follow, you would actually see these. There's a photo over on the left from actually both of these photos are from RES. You can see the community engagement down the bottom there, 295 follows. That is Mrs. D'Agostino on the left. You can see some teachers welcoming some kindergarten students on the right. Here are a couple of pictures from John Reed Middle School. That's the first day of 5th grade, which is a big transition coming into middle school over here. Some boys who seem pretty comfortable on the right. Back to RES, just a wonderful snapshot of a classroom. And some of the things that we do over the first couple of days of school is really go over routines and procedures to help students feel comfortable. And so there's some examples of what two teachers are doing over there at RES. So maybe you got a chance to answer this survey that we sent out this morning, but this was a survey we sent to all community members, and it was on the first day of school. First question was, how were the first 3 days of school for your children? Excellent, very good, fair, or hoping for a better days ahead? Provide any feedback, and also if things aren't going smoothly, then how can we help you? That's a really important question because we ask family members to provide their name and their student name as well if they wanted to, if we wanted to help. And so that was optional, wasn't required. And you can see here that there were 553 responses as of this afternoon, but we have even more survey responses of climbing. It's a good sample size. 47% of families thought that the first 3 days of school were excellent. 43% thought very good. 6.6% thought that the school day was fair, and approximately 2% of families were hoping for better days ahead. And we asked for some feedback, and so these were some of the positive pieces of feedback that we received. Good communication from the district and from teachers. My 5th grader has never been so excited at the start of school. All the fears of a new school were washed away. The teachers made it fun, and so on. Everything seemed to go smoothly. Or there's a couple of comments about things going smoothly and delightful and so on. Children settled into their classrooms, were happy over the first few days. Morning drop-off went well. Kids are happy to go back to school. Bus times are erratic but understandable over the first few days. My son's teacher has been communicative. Very much enjoyed getting back to the first few days of school, getting to know the teachers. Uneventful transition to high school. Oh, excuse me, I forgot to clarify. This is feedback district-wide in 3 districts. And so sprinkled in among the positive pieces of feedback, there were also some constructive comments as well. There was no communication about a new backpack policy. Kids were frustrated, not quite sure what that is. The reason why I'm including this information is because we shared this information with our school administrators today. And if we do have families' names and we do notice things that we will fix, then we'll fix them. There were a lot of communication about bus schedules and kind of bus routes and how long buses were taking and buses were running late. We ask you to be patient for the first week of school as bus schedules should iron out. in time, and if they don't, we want to hear about that and fix them. There was communication here about homework instructions not being available in Google Classroom. Obviously, we're going to clean up our data list there. There's a note here about someone's son not having the best friend in class, so hopefully we can fix that. There's some constructive feedback here, and also some good news as well. This is a comment I received. Just wondering if there are any sport activities after school. I would love to have my child in sports. He's been asking for soccer club. So obviously we need to give parents a reminder about all the after school activities that we have here. And it's been 3 days. So we do intend on sending a follow-up note. But if parents provided notes and they provided comments about, one parent said, I felt bad, my son reported that he ate lunch alone in the cafeteria. All of those kinds of things we really care about because we want to make sure that things are going smoothly for our students. So our principals will go through the spreadsheet, look for things that we can fix, pass that information on to our teachers and our counselors and our social workers so that we can make sure that students feel as comfortable as possible coming back to school. But I think the takeaway really is this first slide. I'd also like to thank our school leaders, our administrators, principals, assistant principals, our central office staff, all of our teachers and staff. This is really good news. I think for the most part, we've had a really good start to the school. So thank you.
All right, thank you. That's school opening. Any questions on school opening, good, bad, or indifferent? All right, that brings us on to item 7B, which is kindergarten enrollment age change. And so, as you may be aware, the legislature in the past year changed the age cutoff for kindergartners from you need to be 5 by January 1st of the year of kindergarten to you need to be 5 by September 1st of the year of kindergarten. And so, as you can imagine, this will have trickle-down effects as districts throughout the state make that adjustment. And in the course of discussing the agenda with Dr. McKinnon last week, I said, hey, have we thought about this? And he immediately picked up a folder and said, yes, we have thought about this. And before we get too bogged down in budget and other things, I think it's an opportunity to talk a little bit about what the impact is looking like from a preliminary perspective. Dr. McKinnon?
Yeah, so there's no action that we need to take on this yet, other than communicating this to you and to our families about this change that's coming down the road. So as Chris just mentioned, the Connecticut General Assembly raised the minimum age for entry into kindergarten. Connecticut was one of the earliest states already in terms of age. The change really is that Public Act 23/208 states that children will need to turn 5 on or before September 1st of the school year in order to be eligible to enroll in school. The previous date was January 1st. The legislation allows the school district to admit a child who has not turned 5 by September 1 if the parent makes a request in writing and the school district conducts an assessment to determine the developmental readiness for school.
And the assessment is undefined.
The assessment is undefined, yes. So some of the things that we're working with our superintendent network and we're asking for clarification from the state is essentially, can you provide some guidance on that assessment? Because if we all do different things, there's no reason to change the age group to September 1st if one district lets everyone in versus another district has really high norms for what that means. And so there's no guidance on that. That's something that we're going to have to either create ourselves or look to the state for a structure. So what are the next steps? We intend on forming a study group, consulting with the State Department of Education and other districts around us to determine what that assessment may look like if your birth date is before January 1st and after September 1. We have to take a close look at pre-K enrollment. We would need to review the space over at RES. How many kindergarten classrooms do we have? How many spaces do we have? Do we have room for additional pre-K classrooms? Develop the assessments and norms. Just some key data points. We currently have about 101, 102 kindergarten students over at RES, which means we have 6 sections of kindergarten. Our average class size is 17. We have 4 pre-K classes, 2 3-year-old classes, 2 4-year-old classes. Our 3-year-old classes will grow as students turn 3 and are eligible for our 3-year-old program. We have approximately a 50% ratio of special education students and typical students. And you can see the class size here for how many students we have in grade 3, in our 3K classrooms, and how many students we have in our grade 4 classrooms, which is about 12 and 11 in grade 4. But what we really have to look at is this graph that you see here. And this shows the current kindergarten classroom and where the distribution of birth dates fall in our current classrooms. And so
This is when they turn 5.
no, this is everyone. Everyone we have in kindergarten and their birth dates.
First month of current kindergartners.
Current kindergarten.
Regardless of age, okay?
Well, if you're telling the age is their birthday, they're born July 2017.
We have 6-year-olds in our kindergarten classroom now. You can see the distribution of how many students had a birth date in August, how many students have birthdays in July. We have 5-year-olds, and then we also have some 4-year-olds in our classroom. So our kindergarten teachers do an amazing job differentiating. There's a big difference between the 4-year-old and the 6-year-old development.
So the change was not in place for these entering kindergarten?
No, it doesn't go into effect until next year.
Oh,
So yes,
okay.
next year.
Yeah.
But if this were next year,
If this were next
there'd
year,
be an assessment for.
these students in yellow.
Well, not the
So-
youngest ones, the other ones.
So, right,
That's a lot.
yeah.
25% of the kids
Yeah.
in the current kindergarten cohort would not be eligible for kindergarten next year.
Why are you including August
Why am I including August?
when the deadline was September about?
Is that on the assumption that August birthdays might still be after school starts? But I think September is really the relevant number.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I meant to shade that. I may have shaded that column correctly.
Okay.
But anyway, you
But
can
still,
see, these are approximately the students that we're worried about. No, excuse me, not worried about, that would be affected by the change.
And under the
Okay.
current guidelines, do they have to be assessed coming in?
Under the current guidelines, all of these students are eligible for kindergarten. The January guideline would be here,
Right, the only eligibility was I'm 5 before January 1st, so everybody there qualifies.
everyone does well. So we really need to look at these 25 to 30 students. This is a sample of the current kindergarten class. It's probably going to be similar to next year's kindergarten class. So we have to make a decision about what we're doing with these students.
Because you've got kids who have been in pre-K 3s and pre-K 4s, and you're gonna say repeat pre-K 4 because your birthday is in September, whereas you were projected to go into kindergarten until the legislature changed course.
Or don't they just get grandfathered in?
No,
No.
Right.
Why do the changes in January instead of during the school year?
because it's effective next year. You have to be 5 by September 1st to be admitted to kindergarten.
Right, so as of January 1 as opposed to the school year.
As of next academic year, so a year from now.
So why are these kids going to anything that they put that on?
This is the current distribution of kindergartners. As
For
we-
information on
because we don't know who the 4-year-olds in town are.
So this is just an example, right? So these kindergartners are not affected at all. It's the current preschool students and all the kids who are in the preschools locally who we don't know about, who potentially will be affected by this legislation, who have full burdens.
If we assume that the curve of every kindergarten class is roughly the same for the purpose of planning. And it may or may not be, but there's gonna be some number of kids caught in that web that have to either be put into another preschool class, which has funding and staffing implications.
Right.
Or find some pathway to get them into kindergarten, which is up in the air at the moment.
Was there, with the current January 1st rule, was there an appeal / assessment situation, or was it a hard deadline, just sorry, you gotta wait till next year?
No, it was a hard deadline.
If you're born January 2nd, you're next year.
So this is, we've got time to study this and have conversations with our stakeholders and to obviously collaborate with districts around us and the State Department. These students can come to our schools next year. But what the way the current law is that we would have to assess their readiness to determine if they're ready for school. And what that assessment looks like is something we have to decide.
Regardless of the assessment, wouldn't you think this could like suppress next year's numbers, but boost the following year? And then
Sort of-
probably level itself
It'd
out.
be a 1 to 3 year kind of rough patch, and you have to figure out how you would take that cohort and how you would treat sort of the preschool plus or kindergarten minus group, basically, and would you keep them together as a class?
The
Because-
forest plus
Yeah.
class.
And maybe there's a way to handle preschool enrollment to align with what's coming, so that you don't have that gap. The repeats that might be possible.
You almost have to talk about whether you shift a teacher down from kindergarten to preschool for a year and then come back. Or something, it all depends on the numbers break, it's
And then we
complicated,
look at certification.
right, you run into all different problems.
And space.
Right.
Right, pre-K
And you would have
classroom
to
has a
keep-
bathroom.
A class size intentionally very small in order to account for. the
Because 17 kindergartners
Well,
is two class, is one section of kindergarten, and 2 sections of preschool, probably, so that's a whole different complication. I mean, the last time that this cutoff change was discussed, 10 or so years ago. The proposal then was to phase it in and move from January to December in 1 year, to November in the next, to October in the next, and it would be you had 2 years' notice, it was a 7-year runway. And here it's just, next year, figure this out.
So over the next couple of months, we'll have to form a committee, delve into this, study it, come up with some recommendations, collaborate with the State Department of Education on the assessment, make some decisions about what that assessment looks like. And make a prediction about how do we think this is going to impact enrollment, budget, class size, kindergarten sections, teachers, certification, and all of the other things that come along. And so the goal tonight was really just to bring this up, talk to you about it. And at some point, we're going to have to take this information and turn it into some type of communication or an infographic or a letter that we send out to our community.
Right, it's a cascade, because I'm confident there are people in the community who have kids who will turn 4 in the next couple of months, who fully expect their kid to be in kindergarten next year. With October, November, December birthdays, who have no idea this is coming.
Absolutely.
Well, that's fine because they have a pack. To me, the real problem is the assessment, with nothing to go by.
And right, if the assessment is, can you say your name, we can sweep them all in and just, worry about it over time. But if the assessment is more than that, it's a whole different conversation.
And it's not standardized with all districts.
Yeah, right, right. So that, item number 2.
But it's important to socialize so that folks understand that it's a problem that's gonna have to be addressed. So that brings us on to 7C, which is building projects update.
Okay, moving right along. Mr. D'Agostino and I are going to tag team on this presentation. I will start by just reminding everyone that probably back in December of last year, December of last year, we started having conversations with our facility committee about modernizing and enhancing learning spaces at John Reed Middle School and Reading Elementary School. And through various conversations at the facility level and the board level, we authorized an RFP. We went out, we contracted with Tecton Architects that came up with some designs. We collaborated with teachers over at RES and John Reed Middle School to come up with some ideas on how we can refresh learning spaces, not all learning spaces, but where to start. And we identified over at Reading Elementary School, the West Wing, which is kindergarten downstairs, grades 1 and 2 upstairs, and the community room over here at John Reed Middle School, and the library as well. Some of this work included furniture, and some of it included some changes to walls and some renovations and so on. So this is a picture of the current space, looking in down the kindergarten hallway. Right away at the door, it's a fresh coat of paint, and you can see looking into that hallway that a new set of lockers and storage. One of the things over at RES was the need for storage and a consistent type of storage because we had a lot of different types of cabinets in the hallway. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't only bringing in student lockers, but we were providing teachers with storage as well. So this is an image of the furniture that we provided along with cubbies where students can put their lunch boxes, their coats and their backpacks and the storage lockers.
Is that across from the new wall?
This is across from the new wall.
New walls. would be
The new wall,
right.
actually, there's a picture of, so that's another image of the storage lockers and the lockers. And that is the new wall.
There you go.
And so to answer your question, the lockers are here.
Yep.
Over here.
Yeah.
And if you remember, when you look down the kindergarten hallway last year,
Those curtains.
some had walls, some had curtains, some was completely open. And in addition to the hallway wall, there was also temporary walls in between the classrooms as well. And so it was difficult for teachers. They could hear everything as well.
That's a real hallway.
That is a
There was
real
there
hallway.
was enough stuff in that hallway that there was an egress concern, right? Will we be able to make it out of here?
The
Always
hallways,
want to take like yourself.
the hallways did seem to be quite crammed. And I think, one of our goals was to provide a consistent storage solution, which kind of cleaned that up. So that's the hallway looking down towards the other end, back to the entrance to the kindergarten wall. And so
we've been there.
they did a really nice job integrating it with the ceiling tile on the floor. Those are new bulletin boards out front of each classroom. Classrooms are clearly labeled with the teachers' names.
It's much more similar to classes at the upper levels where there's a bulletin board outside of each classroom that represents those children's work, et cetera.
Yeah, I think this improves organization, it improves classroom environment, and I also think it's a safety enhancement as well. So this is inside a classroom. So in addition to the outside walls, we also painted inside every classroom. And one of the end of year purchases were new Promethean boards on stands. And you can see that those boards can be wheeled to any location. And so classroom teachers now have the flexibility to kind of set up their classroom the way they want to set up their classroom. And the classroom rug and the meeting area, along with that Promethean board and touchscreen, is a really important focus area of any room. And so now teachers can move that around, and you can move that TV up and down so students can come over and interact with it as well. So the other thing that we improved was in between each classroom was a storage room. The storage rooms accumulated a lot of things over the years, and we were able to turn those storage rooms into small group instruction rooms. So if you're a literacy teacher, a math coach, special education teacher, you can now meet with a small group of students in between each storage room. In between each classroom, which is now a small group instruction room. So you can see there the door to the hallway on the right, and that is the door to the small group instruction room. This image shows upstairs in the West Wing and the grades 1 and 2 classroom. I think we might have a before and after picture, which we can show you. But this really opens up the space in that area. And you can see around the perimeter of the classroom walls, student lockers. Student lockers have doors in the 1st and 2nd grade wing, which were important because we want to kind of take away that cluttered look, right? 1st and 2nd grade students, even though they're only a year or two over, they have a little bit more stuff. Over on the left-hand side, behind the lockers, you can see some storage rooms, which were built into the recess areas. Those recess areas were kind of out-of-date kitchen cabinets and sinks. Some worked, some didn't. So it was also a goal of ours to improve those areas as well with storage lockers. This is another close-up view of the storage lockers. The teachers did a really nice job labeling the storage lockers, the classroom lockers, so that each student knows where their locker is. We also painted the walls and the classroom doors and really kind of brightened up the space as well. This is a kind of a before shot on the left with just a lot of classroom furniture and stuff that's been accumulated over the years, and you can see a picture on the right, it's much more open. Now, our goal, what you're not seeing the picture on the right, is that we do have a lot of furniture coming. And so we have some furniture that is a kind of in a round model, so students will be able to sit around almost like a half amphitheater and sit and collaborate. And I think I discussed with Melissa and Kim the idea of getting some classroom rugs and really softening the space up there, still allowing plenty of space to egress, but just turning this into an open area where students can come out and read a book. Teachers can do some small group instruction out in the main area. And so this will be just another learning space, as opposed to the picture that you see on your left, which is just kind of cubes that were student lockers, student jackets and cubbies and pieces of furniture and so on. So I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. D'Agostino to talk about the courtyard, some other improvements, and Mike, if you also want to chime in here as well.
Great, thank you. So, this is a view of the courtyard, somewhat current, showing the rebuilt pond and the bridge. And that's the flexi pave that's down as well. So just a totally revamped space. And as we get further, there will be a before and after. I would like to include them, but I did want to just circle back to something. I didn't put a lot of pictures, but again, following through on the theme of the efforts of the staff, we received somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 pallets full of furniture and lockers and storage cabinets on one day, and we had actually the town of Reading came over with 2 forklifts. We unloaded 2 tractor trailers and filled the entire space underneath the overhang in the entrance to Reading Elementary School with boxes and furniture. And it was amazing because it actually started to sprinkle and we got everything underneath the covering, so nothing got wet. But again, the efforts of the crew just to get everything uncrated, transported up to the area, and to assemble and fasten all the cabinets within like a week and a half was really Herculean. And so I just want to mention that it's pretty significant. So, but fast forwarding here to the John B. Courtyard again, the crew that has been taking care of this has been amazing as well. Dr. McKinnon, if you keep going forward, will show. So there's your before and after. Again, same spot in the courtyard. I think it's startling to say the least to look at the pond now, to be able to see it, all the weeds and the overgrown.
There's a pond there on the left too.
Yeah, well, there was a pond there, yes, there was. And then everybody loves to see the crane. So this is, it was amazing. It's just, when the crane is out there, everybody's standing there looking out, watching, but saves so much time. So much time to be.
Approximately 100 tons of material out and 100 tons back in. So just basically took the whole courtyard down, 8 or 10 inches, put in drainage underneath, and then built it back up. So the infrastructure for the courtyard is new as well. That'll be working for us for years to come. And those are the things you don't see that are kind of under the ground.
Yeah, and I could have put a million slides in here and shown you the gravel and all the drainage and all that, but nobody likes to see that. Everyone wants to see the fun pictures of the crane. And this is.
Before you jump ahead, Dr. McKinnon, do you want to describe your experience being here in Downport?
Well, I called you on that day, and I called you as well. Mr. Damaris and I were standing
The back on the other side.
Yep,
Yeah.
we were standing at the door looking out at the courtyard, and I think maybe a week and a half ago, there was a really heavy rain.
First day of school.
The monsoon.
Yes. Right. Was it? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right, around 9 a.m. skies opened up, really, we probably got at least a couple of inches of rain in that short amount of time, and the water just disappeared. It just went either into the pond or it just went right through the plexi plate. It was amazing.
This, what are we waiting on out there? This is gonna be artificial turf. Where this gravel is here and where this gravel is here, so it's gonna be, bright green in the far corner, are the shade sails, those are on the way. The pergola that goes along the right side, if you want to take a look after the meeting, which is, I don't know if it's open, but we could take a look at the pergola. The wood has been cut and it's ready to go, we just have to assemble it. I think that's it, those are the three big things, the turf, the pergola, the shade sails are on their way.
So we'll have to provide an update to you soon when those things come in about next steps. But it transforms the space into a space that students ignored, walked by. It was so overgrown that you couldn't see aspects of it. And now it's going to be a space where students can reflect. Teachers might be able to do a lesson outside. Students will be able to walk from one part of the school through the other part of the school. I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities. And we're very excited.
Will students have access to this? Oh, like, will the doors always be unlocked during school hours?
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting?
Yep. Our goal is to make that another walkway from the fifth grade into the sixth grade.
Great.
Yeah, that's nice. My daughter Heidi, who was here from 5th through 8th, when I was telling her that we were working on the courtyard, she was like, I don't remember that. And that's, I hope that the next cohort of students that come through here can remember this and have classes out there.
It should be part of the building,
Right.
not just a thing that sometimes you peer through glass and see what's there.
That's a view of the community room here, with tables are set up. And the flexibility that is with the old chairs, full disclosure, we're waiting on the new ones, as you can notice, but again, gives a lot more flexibility for instructional spaces with those tables and the chair.
I know they're already being used for classes, even the first week, right?
Correct.
And you can wheel them around. They're not just in rows as you see them now. You can put them in circles. You can put them together in clusters of 4 or 6 and so on.
Here's another fun before and after photo. Is your old fire alarm panel on the left. The one on the right is your new addressable panel. We had that installed. It's ready to go. Full disclosure, we are waiting on a couple of parts that were back ordered for completion of everything, but right now we are fully compliant. Everything is working. No more false alarms, no more, issues with the alarm system. So it's been a great upgrade for us.
The fire department happy with this.
Very happy. Very happy. There's our thank you slide from the Board of Education, community, for their overwhelming support, and the school administrators, the teachers, our custodial staff, and of course, Dr. McKinnon, Dr. Pearson Ugal, and Sarah Scribani.
And your name's not on there. Thank you to you as well. And I'm excited that we took the approach, the board took the approach that you've been focused on things like the alarm panel and the roof and the HVAC, which are really important things. Obviously, I talked about the HVAC system at the beginning of this meeting because we're not changing our school schedule this week because of the investment we've made over a decade ago. But our goal also should be to look at this phase 1 of the enhancement and modernization project and ask what's next. So we did the West Wing over at RES. Should we be looking at grades 3 and 4? And what type of improvements should we be making in that part of the building over at RES? Can we update the furniture over at John Reed Middle School 5 classrooms at a time per year? And so what systematic approach can we take to really transform learning spaces? And so Chris and I talked about facilitating or scheduling another facilities meeting soon over at RES or at John Reed, so we can actually see and walk through the space. But also plan what's next.
I think what's going to be valuable in the coming year is getting sort of stakeholder feedback on the impact of the investments in this room and next door, and how that's changed what our staff is able to do in K-2, and let that inform sort of what comes next.
Right. And so. Okay. Mike, would you like to talk about this?
I don't want to overstep. Those are considerations for the board. These are invoices that we received for the work on the modernization project. And again, in kind of alignment with how we've done things in the past, the town is going to fund these projects and you know, out of their capital non-recurring fund. That's how it was put on the ballot. So typically what happens is the town requests that the Board of Ed approves the expenditures and the invoices, and then those invoices are paid by the town. So those motions just reflect thoughts on
So there are two invoices from BNP Construction, one totaling 1564,207.57, and a second totaling 98,575.48. And my understanding is that collectively those two invoices reflect the full scope of BNP's work on the project.
yes,
And so they've completed their assignment to your satisfaction and administrative satisfaction.
correct.
And so in the absence of any concern and on the representation that they're the appropriate amounts that they bid, and that's what the amount is due, then we would look for a motion to accept invoices 3605 and 3604 and approve them, give notice to the town they've been approved, so that the town can go ahead and pay them.
What was
So-
the amount on the ballot? 160 or 70?
Like the.
No, the ballot
Those are the quotes.
on the referendum ballot is
Yeah.
303,
Right.
I believe.
Oh.
This is the construction element of it, it's not the furniture.
Right,
element.
right. At the last meeting, Dr. McKinnon did give you kind of a breakdown of the funding
Yeah,
of all the
no,
projects.
yeah.
Everything is still in alignment with that breakdown. We're still within those,
Yeah.
those parameters. And we still, have adequate funding to do the John Reed wall, as we detailed. But, so these numbers fit in with all those. There's been no changes.
Okay.
So from a governance perspective, we're just looking to let the town know we're satisfied with the work and they can authorize the payment, basically.
Okay, do we need two motions or,
Why don't we do it in two, just so that each invoice is clean?
okay, do I need to say it or? Yeah, okay, move that the Reading Board of Education approve invoice number 3604 from BMP Construction in the amount of $64,207.57 for cabinet demo and painting associated with the Reading Elementary School modernization project.
Second, Mr. Shanahan, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Chirag, can you hear us?
Yes,
You vote yes?
yes,
Everybody in the room? Right, the motion carries unanimously. Laura, do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, I'll move that the Reading Board of Education approve invoice number 3605 from BMP Construction in the amount of $98,575.48 for partition construction and door installation associated with the Reading Elementary School modernization project.
Second from Mike Hoffman, any discussion? If not, Chirag, how do you vote?
yes,
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Any further questions or comments with respect to the building projects updates? I would just echo Dr. McKinnon's comments that it's really nice to see investments made, and with thanks to the town, the taxpayers, everybody involved in the process, that we've made investments in the learning spaces of our two buildings that go beyond the mechanical, basically, for the first time, I feel like, since I've been on the board. And it's gratifying to see the end result of that after a very busy summer.
Yeah, a huge thank you to Mike and the custodial staff too for making this happen before school started.
And for the teachers who cleared out all that stuff.
For everyone is.
All right, if there's nothing else on the building projects update. It'll bring us to item 7D, which is hearing on grievance of REA member. And as I advised the board earlier today, due to the unavailability of the REA member, we are granting consideration to continue the hearing until the October regular meeting. So we will not hear that this evening. And that brings us to the end of the agenda. And seeing no further business and no motions to amend the agenda, we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Mike, second Laura, and after an objection, we are adjourned at 8:17 p.m.